Fresh Prince in the house. Thank you. Yeah. Hi guys. So like us, share us, do all of that, Brian. And Brian has been. So we were asking for those who don't listen to the radio, if our show was Fresh Prince, who is who? And so maybe you can suggest. But Brian's brother said he is definitely
my brother.
Yeah.
Take that for what it's worth. He got all the bad genes. I got all the good ones.
Whatever.
He said I'm Carlton.
That's hilarious.
Outrageous.
Yes. And so I'm Fresh Prince. Duh. Okay.
Or
Thank
the annoying
you.
older sister that no one remembers her name.
Yeah. So today we're talking about how to stop an argument on its track. I'm going to be like Brian, and I know he does this. This stood out to me because after 20 years of marriage, I was like, oh my goodness, this is us. We argue about things and we both walk away feeling unheard, feeling unloved, and in our hearts knowing we didn't get to the root of our arguments or the root of what's bothering us. And so the person says fights happen in all relationships and they're completely healthy occurrence, but are you engaging them in a way that might be doing long-term damage to your partnership? And so I say I'm not proud of it, but after 20 years, I was like, yes, that's us. And so basically the root of the article is saying the argument isn't about what the argument is about. It's about the underlying hurt emotion that isn't being expressed explicitly. And so you were asking, how do we figure out what the root of our arguments are at any given moment, right?
Yeah, and I think as an example, they share a really good one in here about a fictitious scenario of a woman who gets angry at her husband because he didn't inform her that they've been out of milk for a couple of days. What they say is the argument's really about is not about the milk.
Right.
It's not about her husband not saying something. What is it about? They say it's really about that this woman is outwardly expressing anger and frustration, but in reality she's feeling inadequate as a mother because she feels like she's already falling behind in the maintenance of her life in the home, and so that she hadn't noticed the shortage of milk, and so it's further evidence that she's a failure as a mother and a wife.
And how many examples do we see? Like I even think about in my marriage, and this I'm going to use guys as an example because I know this is a thing, but like even recently, I'll say things like, "Oh look, I don't know." Like, man, I would love to have boots. It's something that got nothing to do with my closet or my wardrobe. And it could turn into a disagreement about, but I get you enough clothes, or I never tell you not to buy clothes. And I've learned, like, that's one basic one throughout the years. That's like, we're arguing about, babe, I'm not telling you I don't have enough clothes. I'm just telling you I like, I needed, or I wanted this type of boots. And I've realized I'm hurting or touching on a soft button, which is you're telling me I'm not a good provider. Even though I'm not saying it, that can turn into...
You didn't even mean it.
And I didn't even mean it. And he would, like, a lot of times he wouldn't even tell me. And I'm wondering, does he even realize?
I think at first, no, he doesn't realize it. He gets defensive. But
yeah.
I know, I've struggled with that before, where if Sarah would get stressed about finances, I would get frustrated and depressed because I felt like if I could just be a better provider, she wouldn't be stressed right now.
And honestly, as women, a lot of those times we're not thinking about you as a provider. We're just like, oh my gosh, look at the situation. But the man takes it like you're telling me I'm not a good provider, or you feel like I'm not a good provider.
Or he's feeling those feelings of like being a disappointment, but can't quite figure out why. I bet women go through that. Like, you might not know why you're so mad about the milk being out. Like you're going, I shouldn't logically be this angry about the milk being gone. And it's just as much my job as his to recognize that it's gone. Why am I so mad about this?
So do you think it is explicitly, we know why we're upset, we just don't say it? Or you kind of hinted at, no, sometimes we may not even know. What is the root of the argument?
I think that sometimes women in particular do this one.
Oh my goodness.
Your wife claims she was fine and that nothing's wrong. Fact check. False. I think there's times when people intentionally know exactly what's wrong
Yeah.
and use that as a weapon to start an argument. But I think the underlying causes of conflict could be like, maybe, for example, you're a woman and you feel stressed and upset because you don't feel heard in your marriage.
Yeah.
So anytime, even in a small way that comes up, like you've asked your kids to put the shoes away and they don't do it, and you feel invisible and not heard.
Yeah.
But you know what really caused that likely? The fact that you didn't feel heard as a child. You've never felt heard. And so you have this thing about this personal pain of feeling invisible that you've now let blow up into someone for a tiny little infraction that really isn't about the shoes. It's about you feeling not heard.
So why is it so hard to just say that? To say, let's say you're out to eat and to say, you know what, I'm like, do we go there enough? To say, this is the very root. When I was a child, I felt this, I felt that. Do you think it's a fear of rejection?
Oh,
We
my,
talked about
my wife
both-
just showed up. My
Yeah,
wife
she
showed up.
sure did.
And that's why Sarah is the perfect wife.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, you're here. How did that happen?
Look at this. Barb says, my first time to watch this
Ooh,
live.
good to see you, Barb.
Welcome, Barb. And
I'm sorry, but
Jim,
what was your actual question, though?
why is it that we don't go there? What stops us from saying, you know, babe, this is why I'm hurt? Let's say a lot of times it shows things make you angry, and behind that anger there's hurt because you feel like you're not being respected, let's say. Why not just go straight there? Why not just say, babe, you know what, I'm not really angry, I'm just hurt because I feel like I'm not being respected? What stops us from doing that?
I think it's at our core, not to be hyper spiritual, at our core we're sinful, selfish creatures, and so we get defensive. We want to be right. We have those like fleshly responses that put up defenses, and I think we also have, because we've been hurt before, not by our spouse, but by other people maybe, or
Yeah.
by our spouse.
Yeah.
We lack the vulnerability necessary. Like if a husband could be truly open with his wife about, like it talks about this one. It shares this story about him, a man shutting down and becomes verbally unresponsive when his wife gets upset with him about bringing home the wrong light bulbs. When the reality is, he shuts down because he was constantly criticized in his childhood for not doing anything right, and that's his only protection mechanism. If he's vulnerable with his wife and tells her, I was told I was stupid all the time,
Yeah.
and I shut down, I think she wants to be sensitive to that. But admitting it is a big step, don't you think?
Admitting it,
Being vulnerable.
yes. I'm just wondering why we don't do it. Do we not want to look kind of dumb or weak, I wonder? Paul says communication is important. We must be vulnerable in order to communicate what's going on. Daily honest prayers helps us be vulnerable. When I hear each of those scenarios, I think of the bait of Satan to take offense. Ugh, such a deep topic. God is our confidence and God is all we need. Lori says, I don't think people even are aware of the underlying feelings of being unheard.
Yes. I think it takes serious self-examination, sometimes with others, whether it is your spouse or a counselor, to truly, Lori, you're absolutely right, figure out what's behind it.
I agree.
I mean, because honestly, it's scary to look at it sometimes, isn't it? Like if you have an ongoing conflict with Len, the more you examine yourself, the more you realize how much that thread is woven throughout your life.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of my flaws is to seek the approval of others far too often. And you can see that thread throughout my life pop up in sinful ways. I'm doing things for the wrong motives, or I'm embarrassed so I lash out because I want people to think good of me, or do you see what I mean? And the more I examine that, the harder it is to acknowledge that about myself. It's more painful.
Jim says, my wife and I have developed the habit of asking each other, how are we being received? What did you feel or hear when this is said?
That's good, Jim, but can you do that in the moment? It's like, I remember I went to a married couples thing at a church, and these guys were struggling in their marriage, these young guys, and there was a guy in the room been married 50 years. And they said, we need your help, we're struggling. How did you do it when your wife's driving you nuts? You know what he said? He goes, prayer.
That's it.
And we go, awesome, man, I'm praying. Then what? Then what'd you do? Because like the image he painted was that they're in a heated conflict and he goes, whoa, honey, I think we need to pray. What are you going to do if Len does that to you when you're really mad at him?
Yeah, I would feel unheard. I'd be like, "Are you serious?" I know, but I would not be received very well.
You'd say, oh yeah, let's pray for you.
Yeah.
We need to pray for you. That's what you pray
Yeah.
for, not me, right? That's what you would do. And so I think Jim's right. For Sarah and I, we've almost had to start doing, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, because I know you're here, like fully the next day when we both calm down to do this post-game analysis and conversation of what's behind this. Why is this happening?
Jim says, yes, but it took much time, patience, and love to learn. 36 years, still a work in progress.
So you can do it in the moment, Jim. That's interesting. There's hope, Janelle.
Yeah, there is.
Because can you and Len do that in the moment?
It depends the topic, but no. Like one thing we're trying to learn, and it's been 20 years and we're still not there, we just did it earlier, is learn in the moment. There are conversations that are not productive when we have it and when we're both tired, when it's late. And in the moment, it is still not well received to remind each other, like, wait, let's stop and let's talk tomorrow. We're both tired.
Sarah just stood up at her computer and said, preach!
My goodness.
Because her and Len have that same philosophy, but you're like me, right?
Yeah.
You think you got to solve it right now at 1 in the morning.
Yeah. So that's an issue. Now, one thing I struggle with in terms of being vulnerable, when you're real and you put it out there and you say, listen, this is why I'm hurt, you're exposing yourself completely. So it's easier to put your guard up and be like, I can't believe you did this and do all that. Because when you say, man, you know what, that makes me feel inadequate or have insecurities as a mom, whatever, you give the other person the opportunity to reject that. And if the argument continues, now you're really rejected. Like it just feels super exposed. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you reject me because of the argument, it feels less personal than here are my true reasons. And now I'm giving you the opportunity to be like, I still don't care. Like it's still an issue with you or whatever.
You're right. No, it is that fear of rejection almost.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Sarah is feeling it. Yeah.
She's like, Len is exactly right. Talk tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because does Len have the supernatural ability to be like, you know what, we're really upset, let's just stop right now. And then he goes,
oh
Sarah's
my
just out.
gosh.
She can go right to sleep. And I'm like, ah.
Oh my goodness.
But no, I think that Len and Sarah are right on that to wait for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Betty says, reading the Bible really, really helps me. I'm way more expressive than my husband, so I learned to deal with that.
No, but see, it truly is. Nancy Kane talks about this. You got to preach the gospel to yourself every day. It's when we start thinking we're really a great spouse or a great Christian or whatever that we begin to lose sight of and are blinded to our own faults and problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly think it's that self-examination in light of the gospel, how really a mess we are, that we can begin to do a self-examination of all those areas of mess so that we can at least climb out of them once in a while, right?
Yeah.
It's about a daily self-examination of our own flaws that cause things.
Yeah. Joe said, I don't think men want to look weak or be rejected.
Especially by their wives, right?
So how do we help you? How do we, if we want to be informed, how do we get to the point where we find out, okay, why are you really angry? Like, what's behind this? Without coming off as condescending or threatening in terms of making you look weak. How do you do that?
I think it's a basic conflict resolution slash psychological technique. When I was a teacher and a kid's parent came in that was that the kid was failing. If they sit down and I go, well, your kid is totally failing, it's not going to go well. What would I do? I would say true things. I would go, well, you know, I love having your son in class. He makes me laugh. He's very witty. He's clever. Not passing the class right now, but I think you can be proud of him for his attitude in class. And then we can have a productive conversation about the grade. So what is that? It's you looking at Len and going, you know what, Len, I got to tell you, I so appreciate how hard you work for our family. And I know sometimes I cause you stress. And you've taught me to be a better woman because X, Y, and Z. I'm seeing something that I think might be an issue I can help you with. Do you see how different that sounds than,
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? You sound crazy. Like there is a way to build up your husband
Yeah.
before you give him a big slice of humble pie, right?
Yeah. And it's not humble pie like trying to humble him.
No.
It's really honestly, if you want to find out what hurt is behind your anger or what's the real root cause so we can really connect.
Because I love you and I want to love you more deeply.
Yeah.
By knowing your flaws and helping you with them.
Yeah. Or your need or your hurt.
So how can you like take what Joe said and turn it on its head to be sure that he doesn't walk away feeling like what did he say again? Joe said
weak.
Yeah, if that's a concern for your husband, do whatever you can to make him feel strong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Somebody said we developed a signal to identify when one of us needs to process and communicate without response from the other. I like that.
What's your signal, Jim?
Yeah, what's your signal?
Is it like you're doing like a
Sheila says it's hard for me to open because often the response I get is something along the lines of, I don't understand why that bothers you. If you are dismissed, I can see how throughout the years you'll just stop putting it out there.
Okay, but let's take that on its face, though. Is that a legitimate response? So let's just take one of these examples. Let's say it's you and Len. And you go, Len, well, you're not going to tell me the milk's been out? We've been out of milk for 3 days. You're not going to tell me that?
No, she's
saying... She can't say, I don't understand why that makes you upset?
I think she's saying, when she does open up and say, this is how it makes me feel and this is why, if you're still coming back and saying, well, I don't understand why that bothers you.
Well, see, that's dismissive.
Yeah, that's dismissive.
But perhaps what I would say is perhaps it truly is, he's not connecting the dots. He's not saying...
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible it's being rude and dismissive. And
yeah.
At that point, you've just got to keep praying through it and trying. And maybe get some counseling. But I think it's possible that lack of understanding could still be the case.
Yeah, it is possible.
Like for him, like I've been frustrated before. Sarah would say something like, oh, I feel like a horrible mother. I go, what are you talking about? You're not a horrible mother. What are you thinking that for? That could make her irritated.
That's irritating.
When I truly believe she's do you see?
No, yeah. And you try to be helpful.
And so you would need to help. You would need to help Len understand.
Yeah.
Why it is you would truly feel like a failure as a mother in a way that he can get it and build you up.
Yeah. And I'm thinking also, I have one of my sons who is very emotional. He's 10, so 10-year-olds are emotional. But in his interaction with his siblings, when they don't get it, like when you hurt someone, you're like, I don't understand why he's so sensitive. It doesn't matter that you don't get it. It doesn't matter that nothing. What matters is the person you loved is hurt, period. And I think we should do that in marriage.
Well, yeah, because
I've seen it sometimes in our marriage on either side, so I'm not going to put anybody out there, but it doesn't matter if you don't get it. What matters, what you should do is, and I'm sorry I hurt you. Like, I'm sorry, like, do you have to understand it is what I'm trying to...
I think you should ultimately try at some point to understand.
At some point, yes.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's that difficult passage for men in particular, right? Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it. It's sacrificial. As in the interests of others before your own. So you're right. If she's hurt, it doesn't matter if you get it or not. Acknowledge the pain.
I'm going to confess something, but...
Good. Oh, yes. Turn it up.
So recently, Len identified a connection to why something bothers me that happens often in our marriage.
Like what? What's happening? Can you tell us or not?
It's...
Oh, you don't have to.
It's not a big deal, because... It's the way he engages with the kids as a dad. Sometimes it'll generate memories from the way my dad interacted with us. And my dad was amazing, and I went to the best schools because of him, hard worker. But, he was stressed.
Like everybody else's dad.
And he was stressed. He owned his own business, crazy. And so I'm very sensitive to certain things. And when he connected it to that, and he was nice about it. Like, this conversation has reminded me of that. I rejected it. And I was like, no. Because at the moment, it felt like you're not owning it. Like, it's so easy to say, well, it's because of your childhood. But I'm confessing it because, number one, we do that with other things. And is there something to that? Like, if you say, oh, you're bothered because you feel inadequate as a mom, doesn't that get you off the hook a little bit? Could that be a reason why people don't do that?
It feels like it does. Because, at the end of the day, maybe there's a better time for him to say that, but But I think it takes time for us to even self-examine those things. It's like I told you on the show. Yesterday, Sarah was like, boy, maybe you're stressed right now. And I'm like, no, I'm not stressed.
Yeah.
I am not stressed.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it throughout the day, I was like, wow, actually, I am stressed. I went back and I told her, I was like, yeah, you remember when you said that? Yeah, you were right. I was actually stressed.
Yeah.
It takes a minute to self-analyze. And I bet after the more you thought about it, you're like, oh, wow, actually, I wonder if the way my dad would get angry, that kind of triggers me, for lack of a better word, when I see my husband act the same way. Not that what he's doing is wrong, but I'm sensitive to it because it makes me feel sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And so if he knows that, you're not necessarily saying what he's doing is wrong. You're explaining why you feel that way. He'll want to be more sensitive to it.
Yeah. But does that get him off the hook? If I say, well, you're just complaining, no, you're complaining about me. I'm trying to put myself, because I don't want to put Len out there, but what I'm saying is when we do that as a spouse, does that then say, okay, well, then you're the issue. It's your insecurity. It's not me. That's maybe.
I don't think that's a Christ-like response. A Christ-like response is one of patience, kindness, love, joy, peace, understanding. And so the appropriate response for a Christian spouse would be, oh, that's why you're that way. Let me see what I can do to help you and change how I respond to be sensitive to you.
All right, just to not, before we move on.
Right?
On that topic, though, is it okay for you to say, no, maybe I do have, let's say, I need more patience? Do you see what I'm saying? If you say, oh, no, it's because of your childhood, are you not owning to something, or does it matter? Are you saying, if we're Christ-like, it doesn't matter?
I think if we're both examining ourselves and putting our spouse first, it's going to work out.
Okay.
That's the formula, right?
Yeah.
Self-examination of the sinful person you really are.
Yeah. And
you put your spouse, their interest before yourself. That will naturally happen. What you'll do is you won't let yourself off the hook. You'll say, yeah, I could use some more patience here. But now I understand why
it's
a little bit of lack of patience triggers a dramatic response in my wife, and I can understand it better.
Yeah. So it sounds like I need to call Len. He's going to be like, I told you. Len's right most of the time.
Somebody forward this to Len. He's not on Facebook. But find it. Find a way.
Jim says we all have triggers, but our spouse is not responsible for them.
What do you think of that?
It's not responsible for them.
It's not like, okay, Len does something that's this annoying and your response is this big.
Oh, yeah.
It's not his fault.
No. But if I tell him, I think we're responsible to be sensitive to each other's triggers. You know? Like I'm thinking again of my son, and he has triggers and they say, oh, he's super sensitive. But I'm like, dude, we're his family. The safest place he should have on planet Earth is his house. So it is our job to be sensitive to his triggers and not, you don't think? Once we know them, it is our responsibility to be, to take care of them.
I had one conversation with my kids on this because one of my kids is very sensitive.
Yeah.
I talked to the other ones once. It was like a God moment where I had this clarity of thought where I was like, listen, someday your sibling's sensitivity is going to be something you need. And they're going to be the person you call when you need someone that would have a sensitive, understanding ear. So you may be annoyed now by how hypersensitive they are, but you're going to need this someday.
That's deep.
And of course, they were like, whatever. But I was like, man, that was good, Dad.
Yeah.
Even though they don't like it, I think it's true.
Jim, who's been married for 36 years, says they have a little sign where they kind of communicate to each other when they need to drop a topic, he and his spouse. And Brian said, well, what's your signal?
I was like,
he said simple. The timeout hand signal. It sounds simple, but it works. Also, the hurdle to vulnerability I had to get past was understanding my wife is not intending to hurt and does not recognize she's doing so. It's my brokenness that's causing me to be hurt.
That's deep. Say that again, please.
So he's saying the hurdle to vulnerability I had to get past was understanding my wife is not intending to hurt and does not recognize she is doing so. So it's my brokenness that is causing me to be hurt.
But that's what we were saying. It's the tandem thing of true self-examination and putting your spouse first. Dropping the defensiveness. I'm guessing, though, that the timeout signal is not like going like this. I could see someone totally abusing that with their spouse. You get in their face like, timeout!
Oh!
No.
What? That's another 2 hours. And I don't like it when you do.
Janelle, you can't call timeout. We're on the same team.
Miss Anita, First Lady, says, great point. Acknowledging your partner's pain, whether you understand it or not, goes a long way in strengthening your love and trust. It makes me want to maintain intimacy and transparency.
Yeah.
Heather, yeah. She said Janelle's right. Basically everything I said.
Well, hey, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Betty said some things go deeper, so gotta check that. That's true. And Jim says it depends on the response to the trigger. We need to help them deal with the trigger in truth, yes, and not enable their brokenness. I agree, but in love, yes.
Yeah, and there's timing for everything, and I think we can even be spiritually condescending to people.
Give an example, if you want. Do you have one?
Yeah, you could be like, wow, Janelle, looks like you need some time in the prayer closet to repent. I mean,
are you trusting God?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We can use those things as a weapon, but Jim's point is a good one, I think.
It is a very good one.
Absolutely. Hey, that's about all we got for now. If we talk much longer, we're both going to get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah, he's always getting in trouble. All the time. Because you Carlton. Carlton, can you dance? Can you do the dance?
Can you do the dance? You're always trying to get me to do dances.
You the one said you Carlton.
You called me Carlton.
No,
I am
your
not.
brother.
My wife's got my back. She is like, no, my man's the Fresh Prince.
His brother texted him. You are not Fresh Prince.
If you missed it in the show, she was watching Fresh Prince with her whole family. Looks at her kids and go, if our show was this show, I'd be the Fresh Prince.
I would be Fresh Prince. And he would be Carlton. That's what his brother said.
Not Carlton.
Heather said, thank you for bringing it today. We love you, Heather.
Again, broken clock is right twice a day.
See you tomorrow. Dave Safransky with us tomorrow.
No, he's not.
Wow, it's not. Oh, it's only Tuesday.
Tomorrow, I was like, yeah, that'll be fun. Wait,
no.
Tomorrow's Rydalnik.
Bye, guys. Oh, look, somebody's laughing at you. Barb. Yeah, he is funny. Looking.